What happens when an innocent little girl's question uncovers a decades-old secret that ties a struggling mother to a lonely millionaire? Jason Harlow's life was a picture of success, at least on the surface. A self-made millionaire in his late 40s, he owned a sprawling mansion on the edge of the city, surrounded by manicured gardens and high walls that kept the world out. But inside, the halls were quiet, the laughter of family and friends long absent. His fortune was built on years of hard work and relentless ambition, yet beneath the polished exterior, Jason was a man haunted by loss. The death of his younger brother, Samuel, decades ago had left a wound that no amount of wealth could heal. Jason buried himself in work, using his business empire as both a distraction and a shield. Across town, Emma Scott's life couldn't have been more different. A 32-year-old single mother, she juggled 2 part-time jobs to make ends meet for her 8-year-old daughter, Lily. They lived in a modest apartment, its walls adorned with Lily's crayon drawings and photos of Emma's late husband, Daniel. He had passed away when Lily was just a baby, leaving Emma to shoulder the responsibilities of both parents. Despite the challenges, Emma remained hopeful, determined to give Lily the best life she could manage. Emma's days were long, often stretching into the early hours of the morning as she cleaned office buildings or worked the late shift at a diner. Her world revolved around Lily, a curious and lively girl who adored reading and asking endless questions about the world. Emma's love for her daughter was her greatest strength, but the weight of their financial struggles often left her feeling as though she was running on empty. When Emma saw a job listing for a live-in maid at an estate just outside the city, she hesitated. The idea of working in a world so far removed from her own felt intimidating, but the salary was impossible to ignore. After much thought, she applied, determined to take this chance for Lily's sake. Days later, she was surprised to receive a call from the estate's butler, Mr. Thomas, inviting her for an interview. On the day of her interview, Emma stepped into a world she'd only seen in movies. Jason's mansion loomed before her, grand and imposing, its iron gates swinging open to reveal a long driveway lined with oak trees. Inside, the marble floors gleamed, and every corner seemed to whisper of wealth and power. But as Emma would soon discover, beneath the mansion's grandeur lay secrets that would change her life forever. Emma's first meeting with Jason Harlow was anything but welcoming. As she waited in the grand foyer, she couldn't help but notice the cold, sterile atmosphere of the mansion. Mr. Thomas, the sharp and meticulous butler, had already given her a stern lecture about the house rules. "Everything must be spotless, and discretion is paramount," he had said, his tone leaving no room for questions. When Jason finally appeared, his presence filled the room. Tall and impeccably dressed, he carried himself with an air of authority. His piercing blue eyes scanned Emma briefly before offering a curt nod. "You'll report to Mr. Thomas. Follow the schedule and we won't have any issues," he said, his voice devoid of warmth. Emma could sense the walls Jason had built around himself, but she brushed off the initial discomfort, focusing instead on the opportunity to provide for Lily. Her first day on the job was a whirlwind of cleaning, organizing, and navigating the unspoken rules of the household. Jason's aloofness made the work feel even more challenging, but Emma was determined to prove herself. As she moved through the silent halls, she couldn't shake the feeling that the house carried more than just the weight of its grandeur. It carried untold stories. Meanwhile, Emma couldn't wait to tell Lily about her new job. That evening, she described the mansion with its crystal chandeliers, endless corridors, and towering library. Lily listened intently, her eyes wide with wonder. "Do you think the man who lives there is like the ones in the fairy tales?" Lily asked innocently. Emma smiled and shook her head. "No, sweetie. He's just different." Unbeknownst to Emma, Lily's curiosity about her mother's new job would soon lead to a fateful encounter. A week into her work at the mansion, Emma was surprised when Mr. Thomas hesitantly informed her that Jason had agreed to let Lily visit one afternoon. Excited but nervous, Emma brought Lily to the estate, hoping her daughter's presence might bring a touch of warmth to the cold, imposing environment. As Lily explored the gardens, her laughter echoed through the estate, breaking its eerie silence. For the first time, Jason watched from a distance, his expression unreadable. Something about the little girl's joy tugged at him, though he quickly pushed the feeling aside. Jason preferred to keep his distance, yet Lily's lightheartedness seemed to seep into the cracks of his carefully constructed world. As the days passed, Lily's visits to the mansion became more frequent. Jason, despite his initial reservations, found himself drawn to the little girl's unfiltered curiosity. One afternoon, as Lily wandered into the library, she spotted an old photo album on a dusty shelf. She eagerly flipped through its pages, marveling at the sepia-toned images of a young Jason with a boy who looked strikingly similar to him. "Is this your brother?" Lily asked innocently, holding up a picture for Jason to see. Jason froze. The photo Lily held was of him and Samuel, taken decades ago. He hadn't looked at those pictures in years, too afraid to confront the pain they stirred. With a stiff nod, he replied, "Yes, that's Samuel." Before he could say more, Lily chirped, "He looks a bit like my daddy." Her comment startled Jason, but he brushed it off as a child's imagination. Still, the words lingered in his mind, awakening memories he thought he had buried forever. Emma, on the other hand, was starting to notice the subtle changes in Jason. His cold demeanor began to soften, and his interactions with Lily became less guarded. It was as if Lily's innocence was peeling back the layers of his hardened exterior. While Jason's world was slowly beginning to shift, Emma stumbled upon a discovery that left her reeling. One evening, while dusting the shelves in the library, her eyes fell on the same photo album Lily had explored earlier. She opened it, curious to see glimpses of the man who seemed so distant and mysterious. The pictures told a story of a different Jasona young boy with bright eyes and a wide smile, often standing beside his brother Samuel. But it wasn't just Samuel's presence that caught Emma's attention. Her breath hitched as she came across a photo of Jason, Samuel, and a third person, Jason's father. The resemblance between Jason's father and her late husband Daniel was uncanny. Her heart pounded as questions flooded her mind. Was it possible that her husband had some connection to the Harlow family, or was this merely a coincidence? Emma tucked the photo back into the album, shaken but unsure of how to approach the topic. She didn't want to overstep her boundaries, especially when she still felt like an outsider in Jason's world. But deep down, she knew this was no ordinary coincidence. The pieces of a hidden puzzle were slowly coming into view. Meanwhile, Jason's closest confidant, Miss Grace, noticed the changes in him. Miss Grace had been more than just his mentor. She had been like a surrogate mother after the loss of his parents. Over tea one evening, she remarked, "You know, Jason, that little girl and her mother seem to have brought something alive in you. It's been a long time since I've seen you smile like that." Jason dismissed her observation with a wave of his hand, but the truth of her words lingered. Lily's boundless energy and Emma's quiet resilience had indeed begun to stir something in Jason. For years, he had avoided meaningful connections, afraid of losing anyone else he cared about. But now, he found himself looking forward to Lily's visits and even seeking out Emma for brief, casual conversations. Ethan, however, was not the only one who noticed the photo album. Mr. Thomas, the loyal butler who had served Jason for years, discreetly observed Emma's reaction to the discovery. Though he didn't say anything, his expression betrayed a flicker of recognition. It seemed the secrets hidden within the Harlow family were not entirely unknown to him. Tensions rose when Jason found Lily exploring an old shed on the edge of the estate one afternoon. "You shouldn't be here," he said sharply, his voice startling both Lily and Emma, who had been trailing behind her daughter. Jason rarely raised his voice, but the shed held memories he wasn't ready to face, memories of Samuel, who used to spend hours tinkering there. Emma apologized profusely, but Lily, undeterred, asked, "Why do you keep it locked? Is it a treasure room?" Jason's expression softened at her innocence. "Something like that," he said, his voice quieter now. For the first time, he invited them to step inside. Inside the shed were remnants of Samuel's life, his unfinished projects, sketches, and a dusty guitar leaning against the wall. Jason explained that Samuel had been an artist, a dreamer who had always seen the world differently. "He was the heart of this family," Jason murmured, his voice thick with emotion. For Emma, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Jason's grief over Samuel mirrored her own pain over Daniel's death. It was a shared sorrow that connected them, even if they didn't fully understand the depth of their connection just yet. As the weeks went by, Lily became the thread that intertwined Emma's and Jason's lives in unexpected ways. She was a bridge between their two worlds, bringing light and laughter to the otherwise somber mansion. One rainy afternoon, Lily, ever curious, stumbled upon Jason's office while he was busy working. On his desk sat a framed photo of Samuel and Jason as teenagers. "You must miss him a lot," Lily said softly, catching Jason off guard. Jason looked at her, unsure of how to respond. "I do," he finally admitted. "He was my best friend." Lily's innocent empathy stirred something in Jason, and for the first time, he spoke about Samuel not in the guarded, rehearsed way he had with others, but with genuine emotion. He told Lily about their shared childhood, their adventures, and the argument that drove them apart just before Samuel's untimely death. Unbeknownst to Jason, Emma overheard their conversation from the hallway. Hearing Jason's vulnerability gave her a new perspective on him. She realized that beneath his stoic exterior was a man deeply wounded by loss. In that moment, she felt a strange connection to him, an understanding born of shared pain, though she still hadn't uncovered the full truth. Emma's growing curiosity about the mysterious ties between Jason and her late husband led her to dig deeper into the Harlow family's history. Late one evening, while tidying the library, she noticed a newspaper clipping tucked into the back of the same photo album. The headline read, "Harlow family heirs tragic passing leaves community in mourning." The article detailed Samuel's death in a boating accident and included a grainy photograph of the Harlow family at the funeral. Emma's eyes widened as she spotted a young Daniel in the background, standing near the edge of the crowd. Her heart raced. What was her husband doing at the funeral of a man he'd never mentioned? And why hadn't he ever spoken of the Harlow family? The questions swirled in her mind, but the answers seemed just out of reach. Meanwhile, Jason, oblivious to Emma's discoveries, was undergoing his own transformation. Lily's presence had reignited a spark of life within him, and he began spending more time outside his office. He joined Lily for chess games in the study, and even began asking Emma about her favorite books. For a man who had spent years isolating himself, these small gestures marked a profound shift. The turning point came one afternoon when Lily innocently asked Jason the question that would unravel everything. "Why do you have my daddy's face?" she blurted out while they were playing chess. The room fell silent. Jason looked at her, confused, while Emma froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Lily, unaware of the weight of her words, continued, "You look just like him in Mommy's pictures." Jason turned to Emma, his brow furrowed. "What is she talking about?" he asked, his voice low and tense. Emma hesitated, unsure of how to explain. Finally, she took a deep breath and recounted what she had found in the photo album and newspaper clipping. She told Jason about Daniel's uncanny resemblance to his father, and her growing suspicion that their lives were more intertwined than either of them had realized. Jason was stunned. He had always believed Samuel was his only sibling, but Emma's revelations hinted at the possibility of a hidden chapter in his family's history. The idea that Daniel could somehow be connected to the Harlows shook him to his core. He demanded answers, but Emma had none. All she knew was that the truth lay buried somewhere in the past. Determined to uncover the truth, Jason turned to the one person who might have the answers, Miss Grace. That evening, he invited her for a private conversation in the study. "Grace," he began, his voice steady but urgent, "what do you know about Samuel and my father that I don't?" Miss Grace hesitated, her usually calm demeanor faltering. "Jason," she said gently, "there are things your father kept hidden from you, things he thought would protect the family's reputation." She revealed that Samuel had confided in her shortly before his death, admitting that their father had a relationship outside his marriage, resulting in a child. That child, Miss Grace believed, was Daniel. Your father never acknowledged him publicly, but he made sure Daniel's mother was taken care of. I suspect Samuel found out, and it may have contributed to the tension between him and your father. The revelation hit Jason like a tidal wave. If Daniel was indeed his half-brother, it meant that Lily was his niece. The realization brought a flood of emotions, guilt, grief, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. Jason knew he couldn't change the past, but he could still shape the future for Emma and Lily. Jason's mind raced as he pieced together the revelations. Daniel wasn't just a distant name in Emma's life, he was family, his brother by blood. The knowledge weighed heavily on him, stirring up emotions he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. That evening, as he sat alone in the library, the silence of the mansion felt more oppressive than ever. The photo album on his desk seemed to mock him, its pages holding secrets he could no longer ignore. The next day, Jason invited Emma to the study for a conversation he knew couldn't be postponed. "Emma," he began, his voice firm but laced with vulnerability, "I owe you an explanation." And more importantly, I owe you the truth." He shared what Miss Grace had revealed about his father's past, his connection to Daniel, and how it explained the uncanny resemblance that Lily had noticed. Emma listened in stunned silence, her hands trembling as she processed the implications. "But why didn't Daniel ever tell me?" she asked softly, tears brimming in her eyes. Jason shook his head. "I don't know," he admitted. "But if he knew, maybe he wanted to protect you from the burden of my family's mistakes." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden, panicked shout from the gardens. It was Mr. Thomas, yelling for help. Jason and Emma rushed outside to find Lily lying unconscious at the base of a large oak tree. She had been playing alone when she climbed too high and slipped, hitting her head on the way down. Jason's heart stopped at the sight, and Emma let out a cry of anguish as she ran to her daughter. Jason didn't hesitate. He scooped Lily into his arms, barking orders to Mr. Thomas to call for an ambulance. The ride to the hospital was a blur of flashing lights and whispered prayers. Emma clung to Jason's arm, her strength nearly crumbling under the weight of fear. "Please, don't let anything happen to her," she sobbed, her voice cracking with desperation. At the hospital, the hours stretched endlessly as they waited for news. Jason sat beside Emma, his hand tightly gripping hers. For the first time, the barriers between them dissolved entirely, their shared pain uniting them in a way words never could. "She's going to be okay," Jason said, more to convince himself than Emma. But deep down, he wasn't sure he had already lost one family member, and the thought of losing another was unbearable. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor emerged from the operating room. Emma and Jason jumped to their feet, their hearts pounding in unison. "Lily is stable," the doctor said, his voice calm but professional. "She suffered a mild concussion, but there are no signs of lasting damage. She'll need rest, but she's going to be okay." Relief washed over them like a tidal wave. Emma broke into tears, clutching Jason's arm as the weight of the ordeal finally lifted. When they were allowed into Lily's room, the sight of her pale but peaceful face brought a fresh wave of emotion. Jason stood silently at the foot of the bed, his eyes filled with regret and determination. He realized how much he had come to care for both Lily and Emma, and how their presence had given him a second chance to heal wounds he thought were irreparable. Lily began to stir. Jason knelt beside her. "You scared us, little one," he said softly, his voice breaking. Lily gave him a weak smile. "I didn't mean to. Did I ruin the treasure tree?" Jason chuckled through his tears, brushing her hair gently. "No, Lily, you didn't ruin anything. As the days passed and Lily recovered at home, Jason became a constant presence in their lives. He brought books to read to Lily, sat by her bedside to play games, and even helped Emma with household chores, a stark contrast to the man who had once been consumed by his own isolation. For Jason, every moment spent with Lily and Emma was a step toward redemption, a chance to right the wrongs of the past. But the climax of their journey came when Jason gathered the courage to return to the shed, the place that held his most painful memories. This time he didn't go alone. He invited Emma and Lily to join him, determined to share the story of Samuel and the bond that had shaped his life. As they sifted through Samuel's sketches and unfinished projects, Jason opened up about the guilt he had carried for years. "Samuel and I had a fight the night before he died," Jason confessed, his voice trembling. "He wanted to leave the family business to pursue art, and I told him he was being selfish. I never got the chance to apologize." Emma placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You can't change the past, Jason, but you can honor his memory by living the life he would have wanted for you." Jason nodded, realizing that Samuel's legacy wasn't tied to guilt, it was tied to love, family, and moving forward. The days following Lily's recovery were a turning point for everyone involved. Jason, once burdened by his loneliness and grief, found himself embracing the role of a mentor and father figure to Lily. He taught her chess, shared stories about Samuel's adventurous spirit, and even encouraged her artistic talents, much like Samuel once had. The mansion, which had long been a hollow shell of Jason's isolation, began to feel alive with laughter and warmth. Emma, too, felt a profound change in her life. Jason's newfound openness inspired her to let go of the lingering bitterness she had harbored over Daniel's sudden death and the struggle she had endured alone. One afternoon, as Emma sorted through her late husband's belongings, she found a journal she had overlooked for years. In it, Daniel had written about his admiration for the Harlows and his dream of one day reconnecting with them. Though his words raised more questions about what he knew, they also gave Emma a sense of closure. Daniel had always wanted her and Lily to have a better future, and perhaps Jason's presence in their lives was a part of that vision. Together, Jason and Emma decided to channel their shared pain into something meaningful, a way to help others heal, as they were healing now. Inspired by his bond with Emma and Lily, Jason made the decision to establish a foundation in honor of Samuel and Daniela charity focused on supporting underprivileged children and single-parent families. He approached Emma with the idea, inviting her to be a partner in the endeavor. "No one understands the struggles of single parents better than you," he told her. "You can guide this foundation in ways I never could." Emma hesitated at first, unsure if she was ready for such a significant role. But Jason's faith in her abilities gave her the confidence to say yes. Together, they began planning the foundation's launch, pouring their time and energy into creating something that would leave a lasting impact on the community. Meanwhile, even Mr. Thomas, the stern and skeptical butler, underwent a transformation. Witnessing Jason's growth and the joy Lily brought into the household softened his rigid demeanor. He revealed to Jason that years ago, during a financial crisis, Jason's father had helped Mr. Thomas rebuild his life. "I thought loyalty meant preserving his legacy exactly as it was," Mr. Thomas admitted. "But now I see. It's about continuing to make a difference." The mansion, once a symbol of solitude, became a hub of hope and renewal. As the foundation took shape, the mansion's transformation into a center for community activity was undeniable. Jason dedicated a wing of the estate to host workshops for children, focusing on arts and mentorship programs. One of the first projects featured Samuel's sketches and unfinished artwork as inspiration for the children, giving his late brother's creativity a chance to influence a new generation. Emma played a key role in organizing events and connecting with families who would benefit from the foundation's programs. Her warmth and resilience became the cornerstone of the initiative, drawing admiration and gratitude from those around her. "You've turned your struggles into strength for others," Jason told her one evening as they reviewed applications for the foundation's scholarship program. Emma smiled, realizing that her journey had not only changed her life but also the lives of many others. Lily, too, became an integral part of the foundation. Her natural curiosity and boundless energy brought joy to the children who visited the mansion. Jason began to see Samuel's spirit reflected in a vibrant, unyielding love for life. The once cold and lifeless halls now echoed with the sounds of laughter, hope, and purpose, a stark contrast to the emptiness Jason had endured for so many years. One day, during the foundation's opening ceremony, Jason stood before a crowd of supporters, volunteers, and families. Emma and Lily stood beside him, their presence a testament to the transformation he had undergone. "This foundation is not just a tribute to my brother Samuel, or a way to honor Daniel," Jason said, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "It's a reminder that even in our darkest moments, we can find light if we open our hearts." The applause that followed was thunderous, but what mattered most to Jason wasn't the recognition, it was the sense of belonging he had found. For the first time in years, he felt at peace with his past and hopeful for the future. As the event concluded, Jason knelt beside Lily and handed her a small sketchbook. "This was Samuel's," he said softly. "I think he'd want you to have it." Lily's eyes lit up as she flipped through the pages, marveling at the unfinished drawings. "I'll finish them," she said with determination. Her words carrying the promise of a legacy continued. Jason smiled, knowing Samuel's memory would live on not as a burden, but as a source of inspiration for generations to come. Months passed, and life for Jason, Emma, and Lily settled into a new rhythm that revolved around hope, connection, and purpose. The mansion, once a stark symbol of isolation, had blossomed into a place of warmth and joy. Every week, children filled the estate for art classes, mentoring sessions, and community events. Jason, who once thrived only in the solitude of his business empire, now found his greatest satisfaction in being surrounded by the lives he was helping to rebuild. Emma and Lily moved into a cozy new home just a short distance from the mansion, a gift from Jason, who wanted to ensure they were secure and supported. At first, Emma hesitated to accept such generosity, but Jason reassured her, "This isn't charity. It's gratitude. You and Lily have given me more than I could ever repay." She finally agreed, knowing that Jason's gesture was one of genuine care and friendship. Lily, meanwhile, flourished under Jason's mentorship. Her playful energy brought out the best in him, and her artistic talent blossomed as she worked on completing Samuel's unfinished sketches. Each page she finished became a tribute to the past, and a celebration of the life they had built together, bridging the gap between memory and legacy. In the quiet moments, Jason often reflected on how far he had come. The man who had once hidden behind the walls of his mansion was now a father figure, a mentor, and a friend. Emma's resilience and Lily's innocence had taught him to open his heart again, helping him find meaning in the connections he had once feared. The foundation became a living reminder that even the deepest wounds could heal when shared with others. One evening, Jason invited Emma, Lily, and Miss Grace for a dinner at the mansion, a simple gathering that spoke volumes about the bonds they had formed. The dining room, once a cavernous space filled with emptiness, now radiated warmth as they laughed, shared stories, and planned for the future. Lily's laughter echoed through the halls, and Miss Grace beamed with pride at Jason's transformation. As the evening came to an end, Jason raised a toast. "To family," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Not just the one we're born into, but the one we choose to build." The clink of glasses was followed by a comfortable silence as they basked in the glow of their shared journey. Jason knew this wasn't just the end of a chapter, it was the start of something new. As months turned into a year, the impact of Jason and Emma's foundation rippled far beyond their small community. The programs they developed gained recognition, inspiring other philanthropists to join their cause. Jason, once known solely as a reclusive millionaire, became a symbol of transformation and hope. Reporters often asked him what had sparked such a profound change in his life. His answer was always simple, a little girl's question. "She reminded me of who I was and who I wanted to be." Emma, too, stepped into a new chapter. She became a respected advocate for single parents, sharing her story and encouraging others to embrace their strength. She frequently spoke at events, reminding audiences that even in the face of immense loss, it was possible to rebuild. Her humility and authenticity resonated deeply, making her an inspiration to many. Lily, now thriving in her new school, continued to surprise everyone with her creativity and kindness. She often carried Samuel's sketchbook with her, filling its pages with her own drawings and stories. "I think Uncle Samuel would like these," she told Jason one day, showing him a vibrant watercolor she had painted. Jason smiled, seeing in her the legacy of hope and resilience that they had all worked so hard to nurture. On the first anniversary of the foundation's launch, Jason hosted a celebration at the mansion. The estate buzzed with activity as families, volunteers, and supporters gathered to mark the milestone. Emma stood by Jason's side, marveling at how their lives had intertwined to create something so meaningful. As the event unfolded, Lily unveiled a mural she had painted in one of the mansion's main halls, a vibrant depiction of Samuel's life, Jason's transformation, and the foundation's impact. When the festivities wound down, Jason, Emma, and Lily retreated to the garden for a quiet moment. The three of them sat on a bench beneath the same tree where Lily had once fallen, its branches now decorated with lights. Lily looked up at Jason and asked, "Are we happy now?" Her question, though simple, carried profound weight. Jason pulled her into a gentle embrace. "Yes, Lily," he said, "we are. And it's all because of you." Emma smiled, watching the man who had once been closed off to the world now filled with purpose and love. The camera panned out, capturing the mansion, now glowing with life and activity. Jason's voice echoed in narration. "Sometimes, life gives us a second chance to connect to heal and to be the family we never knew we needed."